A lot of you guys have been asking me for the Knicks offseason video for a couple of weeks now, ever since their season ended, and I just haven't gotten to it. But today is the day, and this is an incredibly intriguing offseason to me, because I feel like if the Knicks were fully healthy, I mean like fully healthy, Julius Randle, all these guys, they had a legit chance to make the finals this year over even this really good Boston Celtics team, of course. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to run it back next year with the same group, which makes this all the more interesting. First, let's talk about the free agents. The first big one, of course, is OG Anunoby, who currently has a player option that he is going to decline. And there's a lot of rumors and a lot of conflicting reports out there about whether or not OG is going to return to the Knicks, because one of the reasons that he was maybe a little bit unhappy in Toronto and ultimately left Toronto via trade is because he kind of has that Jeremy Grant mindset a little bit right now, where he wants to be more of an offensive option. He wants more offensive responsibility. He doesn't want to just be a 3-and-D guy that's going to hit shots and is going to guard. The problem for the Knicks is that when they got OG Anunoby, and he was just the 3-and-D guy that they needed, they were awesome when he played and when he played like that. And they're not really going to have more offensive responsibility to offer OG Anunoby than Toronto did with Jalen Brunson, and with whether it be Randle or someone else next year, he's going to be in that role. So the question for the Knicks is, are they willing to pay OG Anunoby $30+ million a year to be the 3-and-D guy? Is OG Anunoby happy being the 3-and-D guy? And is there going to be another team like potentially Philadelphia with a ton of cap space that just comes over the top with this crazy huge offer above what the Knicks want to pay? And is it worth it to the Knicks to then go ahead and match that offer anyway and bring back OG Anunoby? It is a difficult situation for the Knicks, one that I don't think they anticipated when they traded for OG. I think they were very confident that they were going to be able to re-sign him, and that is step one of the offseason for the Knicks. We're going to talk about all this other stuff, but the first priority for them is going to be bringing back OG Anunoby, because they were so good with him there when he was healthy. And I think even if they don't make any other adjustments to the roster, I think they're going to make adjustments. But even if they didn't, if they just brought back OG and they were healthy, they're a conference finals to finals level team next year. Without OG Anunoby, things get very interesting very quickly. He's one of the more intriguing free agents of the entire offseason. A couple of other free agents for the Knicks here. Alec Burks, unrestricted. Precious Achiuwa is a free agent as well. And then Isaiah Hartenstein, who I don't think at the beginning of the year was someone that people saw as a big-time free agent, but definitely is one now, and another kind of decision point for the Knicks here, because not only do they have to potentially pay OG a ton, but Isaiah Hartenstein might get like a pretty significant contract here. And considering they're already paying Mitchell Robinson not a ton of money, given that the salary cap continues to go up, but like a decent amount, they could be investing $30 to $35+ million a year in the center position between those two guys. And whether they actually want to do that remains to be seen. Hartenstein was awesome for them. It's a really cool 1-2 punch between him and Robinson. They're just going to have to decide if that is a level of investment that is worth it to them. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Hartenstein signs a significant deal elsewhere and is not on the Knicks next season. The only other point to make here in terms of if they wanted to try and save some money is that Bogdanovich, who they got in the middle of the year last year, does have a non-guaranteed contract this upcoming season. So he's on the team, but they could buy out his contract and save themselves some money and not create cap space, but lower their luxury tax penalty if they chose to do so. In terms of other guys' contracts the rest of the way for them, Randle and Brunson both have 2025 player options, thus they are both extension eligible this offseason. Presumably, Jalen Brunson is going to get a new max extension this offseason as this all-NBA caliber player now, one of the better guards in the Eastern Conference. Randle, on the other hand, someone that we're going to talk about throughout the videos, you can probably tell by the thumbnail, very interesting situation there for New York. I do not expect an extension to be coming his way anytime soon, but of course for Brunson, you would assume that he would. And then outside of that, Mitchell Robinson, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, all these guys are good through the 2026 offseason before they have to make any contract decisions on those guys. Whether or not they want to trade any of them is a different question entirely as it relates to Mitchell Robinson, which I talked about earlier with Isaiah Hartenstein in terms of the overall level of investment they'd be willing to give up in order to maintain their center rotation. But that's all the free agency stuff. In terms of draft picks, the Knicks have all of their own picks, and they also have a handful of other teams' future first-round picks as well. Now, not all of them are fantastic. They have Dallas's first this year in 2024. They have a Detroit 2025 pick next year, but it's top 13 protected. It's unlikely that one is going to be conveyed. They have a 2025 Milwaukee pick. The first round protections on that are really weird. It's split between them and New Orleans. But again, not a fantastic pick because it's Milwaukee's. And then they have a 2025 Wizards pick that could be pretty good that is top 10 protected depending on where Washington ends up next season, although presumably they will be inside of the top 10. So they have some future picks that they could possibly use in trades, but the most valuable picks that they have are arguably still their own, depending on how some of these teams finish up. So now that we understand all of the assets, the free agency situation with the Knicks, what's the plan here? Where do they go from here? To me, there's a couple of things that you have to consider if you're trying to really make a finals push next year for the Knicks. Outside of just the level of investment you're willing to put into OG Anunoby, Hartenstein, Mitchell Robinson, let's just assume that they are able to re-sign OG Anunoby and Hartenstein is gone. They still have Mitchell Robinson. They find some more value at the 5 spot in free agency. With that collection of talent, I think the upgrade is very clear that Julius Randle is the guy that they would look to move, use his contract, use some of these picks, and upgrade that spot in the starting lineup. And there's 2 different directions you can go in. You can add someone that is another offensive weapon alongside Jalen Brunson, because you can say whatever you want to about Julius Randle, but he is the second best offensive player on the team. And so if you are to move him out, you're putting even more pressure on Brunson if you don't bring in at least an offensive player on the level of someone like Julius Randle. So that would be option 1. You upgrade that starting lineup with a little bit more offensive firepower, or you continue to do what the Knicks have done basically since they realized that Brunson was the guy that he was, and that is continue to surround him with these great role player wings. Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, all these other guys that they've been able to bring in to surround Brunson and make sure that he is obviously the primary offensive guy. And the guy that's always going to get mentioned here, of course, is Mikal Bridges, the last piece of the Villanova Infinity Gauntlet here in New York. I definitely think this is a real possibility for the Knicks this offseason. They can use the Julius Randle contract. It wouldn't go to the Nets, I wouldn't presume. There's probably another team out there that maybe would want Julius Randle in a 3-team construction. And then the Knicks can give up, a handful of draft picks. Obviously, the Nets in the past have not been willing to trade Mikal Bridges even for 4 first-round picks. The deadline they got him from Memphis. The Rockets have tried to give the Nets some of their own picks back in exchange for Mikal Bridges, and they didn't want to do that either. And so I don't think the Knicks can necessarily get all the way up to that level of value in return. But if they just realize, okay, we really do need to start breaking some things down, they don't get the star this offseason that they really wanted to pair alongside Bridges, the Knicks could do, some of those extra firsts they have, as well as some of their own first and the contract of Randle. And then you have a lineup going into next season of literally the 4 Villanova guys and Mitchell Robinson. Then you got Bogdanovich, you got all these other guys. And although Bridges clearly isn't a number 1 offensive option, he's a really intriguing option alongside of what Brunson does. And arguably, actually, I don't think arguably, just definitely is a better fit with their roster and alongside of Brunson than Julius Randle is. So that would be an interesting team construction for sure. And I think that would be option 1 for them, is you would have OG re-signed, you'd have Mikal Bridges, you'd have DiVincenzo, Hart, Brunson, Mitchell Robinson. Those are your top 6. Bogdanovich as well. That's a really interesting, versatile group of guys that you can move in and out of the lineups depending on if DiVincenzo's, shooting well on a particular night, or you need the size and the defense of OG Anunoby. That would be a really intriguing combination for the Knicks. And honestly, I hope that's what happens, because that would be so cool. Continue to double down on the Villanova thing, move Randle for a guy in Bridges that is just as good as him, arguably, and maybe even a better fit as well. That, I think, is option 1, especially if they're able to re-sign OG. If they can't re-sign OG, that might even make them more aggressive in trying to go out and get Mikal Bridges, because obviously they would have a significant hole in the starting lineup on the wing. Other options for them as well, if they wanted to go more so in the realm of a bit more of an offensive, player, maybe a little bit more of a creator than someone like Mikal Bridges, DeJounte Murray would be an option for them, as this fit alongside Jalen Brunson that can guard, provides them more size. We've seen that that's not necessarily a great fit, in Atlanta alongside Trae Young, and so you could argue it's not a great fit alongside Jalen Brunson either. But I think that's an option they could explore. The one that people are going to continue to mention as well is Donovan Mitchell. But as we continue to go through some of these guards, adding another guard alongside Jalen Brunson, the question continues to be, how much are you really improving the team? Or are you just adding redundant skill sets on top of what Jalen Brunson already is? Donovan Mitchell's really good. Jalen Brunson's also really good. I think they kind of step on each other's toes a little bit. I think you could argue the same thing for DeJounte Murray, although theoretically he provides certainly a level of defense that other guys don't, that you could potentially go out and get. And that to me is a big question for the Knicks. It's like, what is a good fit alongside Jalen Brunson in the backcourt? And if you can't find it, why wouldn't you just go out and try and get, that wing option we talked about, whether it be Mikal Bridges, or if they can't get him, maybe there's another backup option out there like Jeremy Grant or something, despite the big contract and his age. Maybe that's an option that they like out there. But realistically, there's a couple of paths here for the Knicks. One, they try and take a swing on one of these guards, Donovan Mitchell, DeJounte Murray. I think that's unlikely. Two, they run the roster back next year and they say, hey, if we were healthy, we would have been able to make this happen. And then they deal with the player option stuff with Julius Randle in 2025. They give Brunson the extension. They re-sign OG Anunoby. And then they have potentially Randle just walks in 2025. And then that opens up some flexibility for them underneath the second apron. Or what I think is the most realistic option in terms of trying to compete for a title next season for the Knicks is that Mikal Bridges option. It's something I'm going to continue to keep an eye on, and it really does depend on whether the Nets are willing to move on and finally give in on this and trade away Mikal Bridges, and it depends on the level of value the Knicks are, one, willing to give up for Bridges, and two, that they actually have available in comparison to some of these other teams that also might want Bridges should the Nets decide to move on from him. But regardless, this is the best spot that the New York Knicks have been to possibly contend for a title than they arguably have been in 20 plus years. Like, this is as good of a job as they've done putting together a team in 2 decades. And they have a real chance, a real opportunity to make a finals push next season. And a lot of it is going to depend on what they do this offseason.